I am holding a piece of wood that is older than your country. It has stood outside, in the rain, on the side of a building, for longer than any house on your street has existed. It has never been sanded. It has never been sealed. And it has never, not once, seen a drop of paint. Press your thumbnail into it and nothing happens. No give, no soft spot, no damp. It is harder now than the day it was cut, and the only thing that has ever touched it is a black, sticky substance that costs about $3 to brush on. The same substance Nordic builders have been putting on wood for more than 1,000 years. Meanwhile, the fence in your backyard is rotting. The deck you paid for is going soft at the corners, and the paint on your siding is doing the one thing that guarantees the wood underneath it will fail. No paint, no sealant, no pressure-treated board from the store. A bucket, a brush, and one warm afternoon. My grandfather kept a can of it in his boathouse, and the smell of it is the smell of my whole childhood. He would go around every couple of springs with a brush, touching up the boards that faced the weather, muttering that a man who paints his boathouse is a man who likes painting his boathouse. The boards he treated are still standing. Knock on them and they ring like a drum. I used to think paint protected wood. It does not. Paint does not protect wood. Paint dresses it up for the funeral. Before this video ends, I will show you exactly what that black substance is, where to buy it, how to mix it so it actually works, and the one mistake that ruins it for almost everyone who tries. And I will tell you what pushed it off the shelf about 100 years ago, and why the thing that replaced it was never actually better at the one job that matters. This works on the fence, the deck, and the shed you already own. No stripping the whole thing. No contractor. But first, let me start with a number that should make you angry. Nobody thinks of paint as a subscription. You buy it once, you brush it on, the house looks new. But look at what you actually signed up for. Painting the outside of a house runs somewhere around $3,000 to $7,000, and wood siding wants a fresh coat every 3 to 7 years. So every few years, that bill comes back. Over the life of a house, you will paint it 5, 6, 7 times. $20,000, $30,000 spread out just far enough apart that you forget it is the same bill wearing a different date. And the deck is worse, because the deck gets walked on and rained on and baked all at once. Stain or paint a deck and you are back on your knees with a brush in a year or two, every time. And do not tell me about pressure-treated lumber. Yes, it resists rot longer than a bare board, for a while. But the same store that sold it to you also tells you to seal it and stain it on a schedule forever, because the treatment fades and the surface still checks and cracks and drinks water at the cut ends. Pressure-treated is not a wood that lasts. It is a wood that buys you a few years before it climbs onto the same treadmill as everything else out there. Now here is the part that should turn the anger into something sharper. After all of that money, the wood rots anyway. The fence still goes soft. The deck board still gives under your heel one morning. You did everything the store told you. You painted it, you sealed it, you did it again. And it rotted on schedule. Because, and I need you to really hear this, the paint is not protecting the wood. The paint is what is killing it. You are not maintaining your wood. You are renting it a costume. A fresh, bright costume that looks like protection and behaves like a plastic bag. And every few years you pay to rent the costume again, while the body underneath quietly falls apart inside it. Your fence did not rot because it got wet. Everything gets wet. Your fence rotted because the paint would not let it dry. I will explain exactly how that works in a moment, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. But first, I want to take you somewhere that has been fighting rain and salt far longer than your hardware store has existed, and winning. Picture the wettest, meanest weather you can. Rain most days of the year, salt riding in off the sea, wind that never truly stops. And on land that grows almost no trees, so that every single board a family owned had to be carried in and could never, ever be wasted. When wood is that precious, you do not replace a rotten plank. You make sure the plank never rots in the first place. So walk with me to a wooden church in Norway. Not a stone cathedral, a church built out of timber, walls, roof, pillars, all of it wood, that has been standing for close to 900 years. 9 centuries, out in the Norwegian weather, made of the one material that is supposed to rot first. It has outlived stone castles built in the same century, and the whole reason it is still standing is a bucket and a brush. Every few years, for 900 years, someone has climbed that church and painted it. Not with paint, but with tar. Pine tar. We also call it Stockholm tar, because for centuries it's shipped out of that port by the barrel. You make it by baking resinous pine wood slowly in a pit or a kiln with almost no air, until the wood gives up a thick, dark, fragrant liquid. That is it. Cooked pine. And it is not a new trick they stumbled onto. The oldest tar-making pits anyone has ever found are in Sweden, and they are well over 2,000 years old. People on my side of the world have been protecting wood this way since before there were nails to hold it together. And it did not start with churches. It started with boats. A Nordic boat builder had the hardest wood problem there is, a hull that lives half in the water and half in the salt air, flexing with every single wave. Paint would have peeled off it in one season. So they tarred their boats, the fishing boats and the long ships before them, inside and out, and retarred them every year. And those hulls carried whole families across the open Atlantic and came home to be tarred again. That is where the barrels of Stockholm tar were going for centuries, to keep a Nordic fishing fleet alive on the meanest water on earth. If a bucket of it could save a boat that lives in the sea, your fence standing quietly in the backyard is not a difficult customer. I learned the smell before I learned the reason. My grandfather's brush, the black drip on the boathouse boards, the way the tar went on warm and dark and made the old gray wood look wet and alive again. He never explained the chemistry to me. He just said, "Paint hides the wood, tar feeds it." Then he handed me the brush. So hold the two pictures side by side. Their weather is worse than yours. More rain, more salt, more wind than your backyard will ever see. And their wood lasts 10 times longer than yours. A wooden building older than the stone ones around it. That is not because Norwegian trees are magic. It is because of what is on the wood. That is not the wood. That is the tar. So here is the clever part, and it is the whole video in 2 ideas. Paint is a film. That is its entire nature. It sits on top of the wood in a thin plastic skin, and when it is new, that skin looks like armor. Water beads up, the color is bright, and you feel protected. But a film has one fatal habit. It cracks. The sun bakes it, the wood swells and shrinks with every season, and sooner or later, always, that film develops hairline cracks you cannot even see. Now watch what happens next, because this is the trap. Rain finds those cracks. Water seeps through the crack and gets in behind the film, soaking into the wood. And then the film, the same film you paid for, holds it there. The water cannot evaporate back out because the paint is in the way. So now your wood is wet and sealed and warm. There is not a better recipe for rot on earth. You built a little greenhouse for decay and painted it your favorite color. Paint seals the water out, and the day it cracks, it seals the water in. Tar does the opposite, and it does it in a way that sounds too simple to work. Tar does not sit on top. It soaks in. Brush it on and it sinks down into the grain, into the fibers themselves, and instead of forming a skin, it becomes part of the wood. It repels water from the inside. And this is the part that matters most. It still lets the wood breathe. Moisture that does get in can get back out again because there is no plastic film trapping it. The wood can dry, and wood that can dry does not rot. Then there is the second gift, the one the old people never had a word for but always trusted. Pine tar is full of natural compounds, the same family of substances we put in disinfectants, and they are hostile to the mold and the organisms that actually eat wood. So the tar is not just keeping water moving, it is actively unwelcoming to rot. Paint is a wall that eventually lets the enemy in and locks the door behind him. Tar is a guard that never leaves. You can watch this happen on your own street if you know where to look. Find an old painted fence and press the bottom of a picket down where 2 coats of paint have trapped years of ground moisture. Often it is spongy, black, half gone, under a surface that still holds its color. Then find a weathered gray barn board nearby that was never painted at all, just left to breathe in the weather, and press that. More often than not, it is still sound. The wood nobody protected outlived the wood somebody painted. Sit with that for a second, because it tells you exactly what the paint was really doing. You would think a thick coat of anything protects wood. That is the instinct. But the thick coat is exactly the problem. The thickest, glossiest, most sealed surface is the one that traps the most water the day it fails. Here is the whole thing in a sentence a child could repeat. Paint is a raincoat full of little holes that fill up and never drain. Tar is skin that dries itself. Now, I can already hear the question. Fine, Sven. So how do I actually use the stuff? And before I tell you, I have to give you 2 rules, because this is the one video in this series where you can genuinely hurt yourself if you are careless, and I would not forgive myself. Rule 1. You buy pine tar ready-made in a can. You do not cook it. You do not heat it over a flame, you do not distill anything, and you do not set fire to a single thing. It goes on cold or thinned in the warmth of the sun. And when you thin it, you use turpentine, which is flammable. So you work outdoors on a warm, dry day with no open flame anywhere near you. No cigarette, no fire pit, no pilot light. Rule 2, and this one has burned real buildings to the ground. If you use boiled linseed oil in your mix, and the traditional recipe does, the rags you wipe with can catch fire on their own. Not from a spark, on their own. The oil oxidizes as it dries. That reaction makes heat, and a wadded up oily rag in a bucket can climb to its own ignition point in under an hour and burst into flame in your garage while you are asleep. So when you finish, you take every oily rag, and you either lay them out flat and separate outside until they are bone dry, or you drown them in a can of water. My grandfather lost a shed to a rag once, just once. He told that story more than any other. Now, if you think this is only for a boathouse on some island, stay with me, because this next part is for the fence, the deck, and the shed you are looking at right now. Here is how you do it. First, the wood has to be bare. This is the thing most people get wrong before they even open the can. Tar cannot soak into wood that is already painted or sealed. The film blocks it exactly the way it blocks water from leaving. So this is for new wood, or weathered raw wood, or wood you have stripped back. A brand new fence or a fresh deck is the perfect candidate. If your wood is already painted, this is for the next board, not this one, or strip a test section and see. Second, the mix. Straight pine tar out of the can is too thick to soak in. It just sits there, so you thin it. The simple version is genuine pine tar cut with real gum turpentine, roughly 2 or 3 parts tar to 1 part turpentine, until it brushes on easily and flows into the grain. The fuller traditional recipe adds boiled linseed oil, something like half linseed oil, a third pine tar, the rest turpentine. The oil helps it penetrate and cure. Either way, you are making something thin enough to drink into the wood, not sit on top of it. Third, and this is the number one mistake, you do it warm. Warm day, warm wood, and if you can, warm tar. Cold tar is like cold honey. It will not move into the grain. It just smears on the surface and stays sticky for weeks. The tar has to drink, and cold wood will not let it. Brush it on thin, let it soak for a day or two, wipe off whatever the wood did not take. Thin coats that penetrate beat one gluey coat every single time. And pay special attention to two places, because rot almost always starts there. The first is the cut ends of the wood, the raw end grain, where the fibers are open like a bundle of drinking straws and pull water in faster than anywhere else. The second is the base of any post, right where it meets the ground or the concrete. A fence post never rots in the middle. It rots at the soil line every time. So those are the spots where the tar should soak in the heaviest. Feed the ends and the feet, and you have protected the places that would have failed first. And the cost. A can of genuine pine tar runs somewhere around $15 to $30, and a little goes a very long way. You are brushing on a thin coat, not pouring it. Worked out honestly. Protecting a board costs you a few dollars, not the hundreds you hand over to repaint. That is the $3 treatment in the title. Not $3 for your whole house, but a few dollars worth of tar doing what a few $1,000s of paint could not. Then you leave it alone. Not forever. Nothing outdoors is truly forever, but close. A deck that gets walked on wants a light top-up coat every year or two. Vertical wood, a fence or a wall, can go a few years between coats. And a top-up is exactly that. A thin, fresh brush over the top. You never strip it. You never scrape it into a dumpster. The wood just gets darker and harder and more weatherproof every single year, instead of getting one crack closer to rot. So let me answer the promise I made you at the start. If tar is cheaper, older, and better at keeping wood alive, why did you grow up with a garage full of paint cans and never once hear the word? Here is the history, and I will be fair, because this is not a villain story. About 100 years ago, ready-made, paint in a can arrived and changed everything. Cheap. Every color you could dream of. Open the lid, brush it on, done. No thinning, no tar smell, no black hands. And it won the hardware store, honestly, because color and convenience are real things that people genuinely want. I am not going to stand here and tell you tar will give you a bright white picket fence. It will not. Tar makes wood a deep, handsome brown-black, and that is that. But look at the question paint actually answered. Paint answered, how do I make my wood any color I like? It never answered, how do I make my wood last? Those are different questions, and the store quietly let you believe they were the same one. And a coating that cracks and needs redoing every few years has a business advantage that a bucket lasting a decade will never have. It brings you back to the register. You cannot build a whole aisle around something people buy once. So the tar was not banned. It was not disproven. It was not beaten in a fair fight over which one keeps wood alive longer. It was simply out-marketed, replaced by something prettier that you have to buy again every few years. It is still out there. A few specialist shops still sell it. It is just never at the front of the store, because the front of the store is for things you come back for. Now the three objections I can already hear. First, I want color, Sven, not black tar on everything. Fair and true. So use tar where lasting matters more than looks. The backs of fences, the frame under your deck, the shed, the raised garden beds, the posts you sink into the ground, The boathouse, if you are lucky enough to have one. Those are the parts that rot first and nobody sees anyway. Protect those with tar, and if you want the front face a certain color, paint that. There are even pigmented tar products now that give you some color with the protection. Use the right tool on the right board. Second, my wood is already painted. Then, this is for your next board, not the one that is already dressed. Tar is for bare wood. When that painted fence finally fails, and it will, you will replace a section, and that section gets tar, and it outlives everything around it. Or strip a small patch now and give yourself a 10-year head start. Third, I rent or I do not have a whole house to treat. You do not need one. A single can will protect a raised garden bed, a wooden planter, a set of outdoor chairs, a garden gate, a mailbox post. Small things that rot and get thrown away every couple of years. Tar one and watch it outlive 3 of your neighbors. And one honest warning, because I will not sell you a fairy tale. It is sticky, it is dark, and for the first few weeks it smells like a campfire and a pine forest had an argument. Wear gloves you do not care about and old clothes. But that smell fades to almost nothing as it cures. The surface hardens, and what you are left with is wood that turns rain away for years without a thought. A little mess on one Saturday, or a soft board and a new bill every few springs. That is the whole choice. So here is what I want you to take from an old man and his grandfather's boathouse. Nobody hid pine tar from you. They just found something that comes in 1,000 colors and needs buying again every few years. And they stopped mentioning that it guards your wood about as well as a coat of nail polish. The tar was never beaten. It was outmarketed. A wooden church in Norway has stood for 900 winters on nothing but a bucket of it, brushed on by hand, again and again, by people who understood that you do not seal wood. You let it breathe and you keep the rot out. Your painted fence, for all your money, cannot make it 9. Start with one board this summer. A raised bed, a gate, a fence post. Buy the small can, thin it, brush it on a warm afternoon, and put it somewhere you can watch it for a few years next to something you painted. Let the wood tell you which one of us is right. Now I want a number from you. When did you last repaint or restain something outside? A fence? A deck? The whole house? And what did it cost you? Put it in the comments. I want to see the yearly bill this country pays to keep a costume looking fresh. And if your wood rotted anyway, under good paint, tell us that too. Somebody scrolling by is about to make the same mistake. If you would rather protect your wood than repaint it every few years, you already know what to do. Subscribe. And next week, we go inside to the one thing my islands have always had more of than people. There is more of it walking around those hills than there are human beings, and for 1,000 years it has done 15 quiet jobs around a house. Jobs you are paying for right now, one bottle and one bag at a time, without ever knowing there was a free version grazing on a hillside. What it is, and every last thing it can do, that is coming. Stay close.